The Avalon colony had thrived in isolation for 500,000 years, a testament to humanity's resilience and ingenuity, hidden away in the vast reaches of deep space. Here, far from the prying eyes of the Galactic Council that once sought to exterminate their kind, humans had built glittering cities and unlocked the secrets of the cosmos, mastering genetic engineering, dark energy manipulation, and even achieving a form of effective immortality. This long period of peace and prosperity, however, was not without its undercurrents of unresolved anger and a deep-seated desire for revenge. The memories of Earth's destruction, of humanity's cradle being turned to ashes, were seared into the collective consciousness of the Avalon inhabitants. It was these memories that fueled their relentless drive to surpass the Galactic Council's wildest nightmares, preparing in secret for the day they would emerge from the shadows to reclaim their place in the stars. The day of reckoning finally arrived when the Avalon colony's deep space exploration fleet detected anomalous readings from an uncharted sector. These readings bore the unmistakable signatures of impossibly advanced technology, sparking immediate interest and a call to arms within the Avalon Command. Fleet Commander Xander, eager to conquer new territory and solidify his people's dominance, raced to investigate. As the Voth ships, allies of the Galactic Council, closed in on Avalon, an armada of human vessels shimmered into existence, their weapons charged and shields raised. The leader of Avalon, Zachary Ross, who had lived for centuries through the advancements of genetic engineering, now faced the enemy with a calm that belied the fury within. "We are the ghosts of Earth," Ross declared, his voice resonating with the weight of history and vengeance. "The ones you tried to destroy. But we survived, evolved, and now we're back to reclaim our rightful place in the stars." Light years away, in the heart of the Galactic Council's territory, High Admiral Zorks received the report of this unexpected encounter with a mix of disbelief and cold fury. The Voth leader, a scarred veteran of countless battles, slammed his fist onto his desk, the impact sending data pads clattering to the floor. "Impossible!" he growled, his voice thick with rage. "We burned their world to ashes centuries ago. This cannot be." His mind raced with the implications as he barked orders to his subordinates, assembling the fleet with the intention of dealing with this human resurgence once and for all. On Avalon, in a sleek command center overlooking the colony's gleaming spires, Ross conferred with his inner circle, including the brilliant Dr. Eliza Novak and the cunning strategist Sinclair. Novak's piercing gaze was focused on the data streaming in from the encounter with the Voth fleet. "It's not just their technology," she reported, her voice laced with a mix of awe and concern. "The Voth have integrated Nexium into their very biology. Without it, they'll wither and die." This revelation brought a grim smile to Sinclair's face. "Leave that to me," he said, his tone predatory. "I'll have my agents on those worlds within a day." As the chess pieces moved into place, with the resurgent humans and the entrenched council maneuvering for advantage, the galaxy held its breath. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Zorks brooded over the choices before him. To back down would be to show weakness, inviting further defiance. But to strike against the humans now, with their strange and terrible technologies, was a risk he had to take. The stillness of space was shattered as a brilliant beam of energy lanced out from the Voth warship, slamming into Sinclair's diplomatic vessel. The ship bucked violently, but its advanced shields held firm, dispersing the attack in a dazzling display of light. The human ship accelerated away from the Voth fleet, its sleek hull gleaming as it dodged volleys of weapons fire. Within moments, it vanished into the depths of space, leaving behind a stunned and enraged Admiral Zorks. Back on Avalon, Ross watched the footage of the unprovoked attack with cold fury etched across his face. "They've made their choice," he muttered, turning to his advisors. "Prepare our forces for full mobilization." The war had begun, a war that would test the limits of human endurance, ingenuity, and the unyielding will to survive. Dr. Novak, deep within Avalon's research complex, pored over the data, her mind racing with the implications of what they had learned. Meanwhile, Sinclair's operatives infiltrated Voth-held worlds, sowing discord and weakening the enemy from within. As the galaxy held its breath, the real battle was about to begin, one that would determine the fate of two civilizations, and reshape the course of history. The preparations for war on Avalon reached a fever pitch as the realization dawned on its citizens and leaders alike that the time had come to face the Galactic Council's betrayal head-on. The human fleets, armed with technologies far beyond anything the Council could have imagined, mobilized with a precision born from centuries of meticulous planning and relentless innovation. The shipyards of Avalon, once silent and hidden, now hummed with activity, producing vessels that combined human ingenuity with the arcane secrets of the cosmos. These ships, bristling with weapons and shields powered by dark energy, were unlike any that had ever been seen in the galaxy, designed specifically to counter the known weaknesses of the Council's forces. As the fleets assembled, Zachary Ross, the immortal leader of Avalon, stood before his people in the central plaza of the capital city. His presence, both awe-inspiring and reassuring, reminded them of the long and arduous journey that had brought them to this point. "Today," Ross began, his voice amplified by the city's communication grid, "we stand on the precipice of reclaiming what was once taken from us. The Council believed they had wiped us from existence, that our flame had been extinguished. But we have risen from the ashes, stronger and more united than ever. This is our moment. We fight not just for vengeance, but for the future of humanity. The stars are our inheritance, and we will not be denied." The response from the crowd was a deafening roar of approval, the sound echoing through the crystalline spires of the city. Ross knew the importance of this moment. Morale was everything, and the people of Avalon needed to believe with every fiber of their being that victory was not just possible, but inevitable. As he descended from the podium, his mind turned to the complexities of the coming conflict. The Voth, as formidable as they were, represented only a fraction of the Council's military might. The real challenge lay in the shadowy corridors of Council power, where the true architects of Earth's destruction resided. Meanwhile, on the bridge of his flagship, High Admiral Zorks grappled with the reality of the situation. Reports from the front lines were grim. The human ships were proving to be a far greater threat than anticipated. Their shields were impervious to conventional Council weaponry, and their offensive capabilities were devastating. Each encounter left the Voth fleet battered and reeling, and Zorks knew that they could not sustain such losses indefinitely. He needed a strategy, something to turn the tide before the humans could gain too much ground. In a moment of desperation, Zorks reached out to the Council's inner sanctum, a secretive group known only as the Enclave. Comprised of the most powerful and ancient species in the galaxy, the Enclave had always operated behind the scenes, manipulating events to maintain their control over the galaxy. Zorks' message was simple. The humans were back, and they were a threat unlike any other. The response from the Enclave was swift and chilling. "The humans must be eradicated," the message read. "They are an anomaly in the order of the galaxy, a species that has defied natural selection and evolved in ways that threaten the stability of all. Deploy the Exterminatus." The Exterminatus was a weapon of last resort, a doomsday device designed to annihilate entire planets, leaving no survivors. It had been used only once before, in a conflict so ancient that its details had been lost to time. The mere mention of it sent a shiver down Zorks' spine. He knew what it meant. The Enclave had decided that humanity, once and for all, had to be erased from the universe. But deploying such a weapon would require careful planning. It could not be used on Avalon directly, for the planet's defenses were too strong. Instead, Zorks would have to lure the human fleet into a trap, a carefully orchestrated ambush where the Exterminatus could be unleashed without warning. As Zorks began to formulate his plan, unaware that his every move was being monitored by human spies embedded deep within the Council's ranks, Dr. Eliza Novak made a breakthrough of her own. Deep within Avalon's research labs, she had been studying the Voth's reliance on Nexium, the mysterious substance integrated into their biology. Her team had discovered a way to disrupt the Nexium pathways, a method that could cripple the Voth without firing a single shot. "If we can deploy this in time," Novak explained to Ross, "we can neutralize their entire fleet, leaving them vulnerable to our counterattack." Ross nodded, appreciating the brilliance of Novak's plan. It was a strategy that combined the best of human creativity and scientific acumen. But there was a risk. If the disruption failed, it could provoke the Voth into a suicidal last stand, one that could cost countless human lives. We proceed with caution, Ross finally decided. Prepare the weapon, but do not deploy it until we have no other choice. As the war escalated, with skirmishes breaking out across the galaxy, the stakes grew higher with each passing day. The Council, now fully aware of the human resurgence, began to marshal its vast resources, pulling in fleets from across the galaxy. The humans, though vastly outnumbered, fought with a tenacity that astonished their enemies. Every victory, every ship destroyed was a reminder that they were no longer the frightened survivors of a doomed Earth, but a force to be reckoned with. In the shadows, the Enclave watched, their plans unfolding with a cold, calculated precision. They had underestimated humanity once before, and they would not make the same mistake again. But as they prepared to unleash the Exterminatus, they failed to notice the subtle shifts within their own ranks. Humanity, after all, had always excelled at turning enemies into allies, and the Enclave was not immune to the seeds of discord. Back on Avalon, as the final preparations were made for the largest engagement yet, Ross stood alone in his quarters, gazing out at the stars. He knew that the coming battle would determine the future of his people. Victory would secure humanity's place in the galaxy, but defeat would mean annihilation. As he closed his eyes, he could almost hear the voices of those who had fallen, the billions of lives lost when Earth was destroyed. "We will not fail," he whispered, the words a promise and a prayer. The hours before the battle were tense, filled with the hum of activity as fleets maneuvered into position. Sinclair, ever the strategist, had devised a plan that would draw the Voth into a trap of their own making. Human ships, equipped with the new Nexium disruptors, would feign weakness, luring the Voth into a concentrated attack. Once they were committed, the disruptors would be activated, leaving the Voth defenseless against the full might of the Avalon fleet. The plan was audacious, its success dependent on flawless execution. As the countdown to battle began, every human aboard the Avalon ships prepared for the worst, knowing that failure was not an option. In the final moments, Ross addressed his fleet, his voice steady and calm. "This is our time," he declared. "Remember who we are, where we come from, and why we fight. The galaxy will learn today that humanity is not to be trifled with. We are the children of Earth, and we will not be erased." The battle, when it came, was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. The sky above Avalon was a blaze of light as ships clashed in a titanic struggle for dominance. The Voth, sensing victory, committed their forces in a massive push, only to find themselves suddenly and inexplicably crippled. The Nexium disruptors had worked perfectly, and the once mighty Voth fleet found itself powerless as human ships tore through their ranks. Admiral Zorks, realizing too late that he had been outmaneuvered, ordered a full retreat, but it was a futile gesture. The humans, driven by centuries of pent-up rage and the unyielding will to survive, gave no quarter. As the last of the Voth ships were destroyed or captured, Ross gave the order to stand down. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. The true test would come when they faced the full might of the Galactic Council and the looming threat of the Exterminatus. But for now, there was a moment of peace, a chance to regroup and prepare for the final confrontation. In the aftermath of the battle, as the debris of the Voth fleet drifted in the cold void of space, Ross and his advisors gathered to assess their next move. The victory had been decisive, but they knew that the Council would not rest until humanity was destroyed. "We need to strike at the heart of the Council," Sinclair argued, his voice filled with the urgency of the moment. "We can't wait for them to come to us. We take the fight to them." Dr. Novak, always cautious, urged restraint. "We don't know what other weapons they might have," she warned. "The Exterminatus is still out there, and if they use it, Avalon could be destroyed in an instant." Ross listened to both sides, weighing the risks and the rewards. He knew that Sinclair was right. They couldn't afford to wait. But Novak's concerns were valid. They had to be careful, or they could lose everything. In the end, Ross made the hardest decision of his long life. "We go to war," he said, his voice resolute, "but we do so on our terms. We will strike at the heart of the council, but we will be ready for whatever they throw at us. Prepare the fleet. We leave at dawn." As his advisors left to carry out his orders, Ross turned once more to the stars, the weight of leadership heavy on his shoulders. The final battle was coming, and with it, the fate of humanity. But whatever happened, Ross knew one thing: they would not go down without a fight. The days leading up to the assault on the Galactic Council's core systems were filled with frantic preparation. Human agents, embedded deep within Council space, fed critical intelligence back to Avalon, allowing Sinclair to craft a strategy that maximized their strengths and exploited the weaknesses of their enemies. The plan was bold, perhaps even reckless, but it was the only option. A direct assault on the Council's stronghold was the only way to prevent the deployment of the Exterminatus, and it would require every ounce of cunning and courage that humanity possessed. As the fleet assembled, Ross took a moment to address his people one final time. "Today, we stand united against an enemy that sought to destroy us," he said, his voice carrying across the vast expanse of Avalon. "They believed they had ended us, that we were a forgotten chapter in the history of the galaxy. But they were wrong. We are not just survivors, we are the future, and today we reclaim our place among the stars." The fleet's departure from Avalon was a sight to behold. Hundreds of ships, each a testament to human ingenuity and resilience, soared into the void, their engines burning bright against the darkness of space. Leading the charge was Ross's flagship, a massive vessel bristling with weapons and shields, ready to face whatever the Council could throw at it. The journey to the Council's core systems was fraught with danger. As they crossed the galaxy, the fleet encountered numerous obstacles: pirate bands, rogue AI constructs, and even natural phenomena like rogue black holes, all of which had to be navigated or neutralized. But despite the challenges, the fleet pressed on, driven by the knowledge that they were fighting not just for themselves, but for all of humanity. Finally, after weeks of travel, the fleet arrived at its destination, the heart of the Galactic Council's territory, a region of space heavily fortified and protected by some of the most advanced defenses in the galaxy. The Council's capital world, a glittering jewel of technology and power, lay at the center of it all, surrounded by orbital platforms, defense grids, and fleets of warships. The battle began as soon as the human fleet dropped out of warp. The Council's forces, though taken by surprise, reacted swiftly, launching wave after wave of fighters and bombers in an attempt to overwhelm the human ships. But the humans were ready. Using advanced tactics and the element of surprise, they cut through the Council's defenses, their ships maneuvering with precision and striking with devastating force. Admiral Orcs, overseeing the defense from the command center on the Council's capital world, could hardly believe what he was seeing. The humans were not just holding their own, they were winning. His forces, though superior in number, were being outmaneuvered at every turn. And then, as if things weren't bad enough, Zorks received the news he had been dreading. The Exterminatus was not ready. The weapon, designed to be the ultimate failsafe, was still undergoing final tests and could not be deployed in time to stop the human advance. Realizing that his only hope lay in a desperate gamble, Zorks ordered his fleet to fall back to the capital world, hoping to lure the humans into a final decisive battle. But Ross, who had anticipated this move, was one step ahead. Instead of taking the bait, he ordered his fleet to bypass the planet's defenses and strike directly at the Council's leadership, housed in a massive space station in orbit. The assault on the station was brutal and swift. Human Marines, using advanced exoskeletons and personal shields, stormed the station's corridors, cutting down Council guards and securing key positions. Ross himself led the charge, his centuries of experience and knowledge of the enemy giving him a clear advantage. Within hours, the station was in human hands, and the Council's leaders were captured or killed. With the station secured, Ross broadcast a message to the entire galaxy. "The Galactic Council has fallen," he declared, his voice calm and steady. "The era of oppression and tyranny is over. Humanity has returned, and we will no longer be pushed aside." To those who would continue to resist, know this. We are coming for you, and we will not stop until the galaxy is free. The response was immediate. Across the galaxy, species that had long suffered under the Council's rule rose up in rebellion, inspired by the humans' victory. The Council's remaining forces, leaderless and demoralized, began to collapse, their ships and soldiers either surrendering or fleeing into deep space. But even as the galaxy celebrated, Ross knew that the war was not truly over. The Council's power had been broken, but the threat of the Exterminatus remained. Somewhere, hidden away in a secret facility, the weapon waited, and Ross knew that it was only a matter of time before someone tried to use it. And so, even as humanity began to rebuild and forge new alliances, Ross and his advisors turned their attention to the final task at hand, finding and destroying the Exterminatus before it could be unleashed. It was a daunting challenge, but Ross was confident that, with the same determination and ingenuity that had brought them this far, they would succeed. As the search for the Exterminatus began, humanity's new role in the galaxy started to take shape. No longer were they the hunted, the survivors of a forgotten war. They were now leaders, pioneers in a new era of exploration and discovery. The galaxy, once ruled by fear and oppression, was now filled with hope and possibility, and humanity was at the forefront of this new age. But Ross, ever vigilant, knew that peace was fragile. The galaxy was vast, and there were still many dangers lurking in the shadows. He vowed to remain watchful, to ensure that the hard-won victories of the past would not be undone. And so, even as humanity celebrated its triumph, Ross kept his gaze fixed on the stars, knowing that the future was uncertain and that the fight for survival was far from over. In the days and weeks that followed the fall of the Galactic Council, humanity's newfound allies from across the galaxy converged on Avalon, eager to join forces and rebuild a shattered galaxy. The human-led coalition, now known as the Alliance of Free Species, quickly established itself as the dominant power, with Avalon serving as the capital of this new era of interstellar cooperation. The scars of the war were evident everywhere, on the planets ravaged by conflict, in the hearts of those who had lost loved ones, and in the minds of the leaders tasked with forging a future free from the tyranny of the past. Zachary Ross, though hailed as a hero by many, found little comfort in the accolades. His thoughts were consumed by the looming threat of the Exterminatus, the doomsday weapon that had yet to be neutralized. Every day that passed without locating the weapon felt like a countdown to another catastrophe. Intelligence reports poured in from across the galaxy, with spies and informants scouring every corner of known space for clues to the Exterminatus's whereabouts. But the search was slow, frustrating, and fraught with false leads. Amidst these efforts, Dr. Eliza Novak continued her work on deciphering the ancient technologies that had enabled humanity's resurgence. The Nexium disruptors had proven invaluable in the war, but Novak knew that the key to ensuring lasting peace lay in understanding the deeper mysteries of the cosmos, those secrets that had allowed the Enclave to maintain control for so long. In the hidden laboratories beneath Avalon, she and her team delved into the archives recovered from the Council's databanks, searching for anything that could tip the balance further in humanity's favor. Meanwhile, the task of governing the Alliance fell to Ross and his closest advisors. The Alliance was an unprecedented coalition of species, each with its own needs, cultures, and histories of conflict with the Council. Diplomacy, always a delicate art, now became a full-time endeavor as Ross navigated the intricate web of alliances, rivalries, and expectations that defined this new order. The challenges were immense, but Ross approached them with the same determination that had carried humanity through its darkest days. One of the first major challenges the Alliance faced was the issue of reparations and rebuilding. Many species had suffered under the Council's rule, and there were deep-seated grievances that had to be addressed. Ross knew that if these issues were not handled with care, the fragile unity of the Alliance could quickly unravel. To this end, he proposed the creation of the Galactic Reconstruction Corps, GRC, an organization tasked with overseeing the rebuilding of war-torn worlds and ensuring that the resources of the Alliance were distributed fairly. The GRC quickly became one of the most important institutions in the New Order, with representatives from every member species working together to coordinate efforts. Under the leadership of Dr. Amelia Chen, a renowned archaeologist and humanitarian, the GRC set about restoring devastated planets, rebuilding infrastructure, and providing aid to those who had been displaced by the war. The work was slow and the challenges were many, but the sense of shared purpose that had brought the Alliance together continued to drive their efforts. As the months passed, the Alliance began to take on a more permanent structure. A council of representatives from each member species was established, with Ross serving as its de facto leader. The Council of Avalon, as it was known, became the primary decision-making body of the Alliance, charged with maintaining peace, fostering cooperation, and protecting the rights of all species. It was a far cry from the autocratic rule of the Galactic Council, and though the process was often messy and contentious, it was a step toward the kind of galaxy Ross had always dreamed of. But even as these diplomatic and reconstruction efforts moved forward, the shadow of the Exterminatus loomed ever larger. The search for the weapon became increasingly desperate, with entire fleets dispatched to comb through the most remote regions of space. Ross himself led several missions, determined to find and neutralize the threat before it could be used. The stress of the search began to take its toll on him, and those closest to him could see the strain in his eyes, the way his once boundless energy seemed to be slowly eroding. It was during one such mission that Ross received a message from an unexpected source, an Enclave defector. The message was brief and cryptic, but it provided a vital clue. The Exterminatus was not a single weapon, but a network of devices hidden across multiple star systems designed to trigger a chain reaction that would wipe out all life in the galaxy. The defector, who claimed to be one of the architects of the weapon, offered to help dismantle it in exchange for asylum. Ross knew it could be a trap, but the information was too valuable to ignore. He ordered the fleet to change course and rendezvous with the defector at a remote outpost on the edge of known space. The journey was tense, with every sensor sweep revealing new potential threats. But when they arrived, the defector, a being of a species Ross had never encountered, was waiting. The defector, who introduced herself as Orla, explained that she had been part of the Enclave's inner circle, responsible for some of their most devastating weapons. Orla's reasons for defecting were complex. She had grown disillusioned with the Enclave's methods and had come to believe that their obsession with control and order would ultimately lead to their own destruction. She had watched as humanity defied the odds time and again, and she had come to admire their resilience and determination. "You are the only species that has ever truly challenged the Enclave," Orla said, "and for that you must be destroyed. But I can't let that happen." With Orla's help, Ross and his team began the painstaking process of dismantling the Exterminatus network. The work was dangerous, involving not just technical expertise but also the constant threat of discovery by Enclave loyalists. The network was vast, with devices hidden on barren worlds, within asteroid fields, and even in the depths of gas giants. Each device had to be carefully deactivated, its core neutralized before it could be triggered. The process took months, with Ross and his team moving from system to system, always on the move, always one step ahead of the Enclave. Along the way, they encountered countless dangers, hostile environments, ambushes by Enclave forces, and even sabotage from within their own ranks. But with each device they deactivated, the noose around the galaxy loosened a little more. As the final device was neutralized, Ross allowed himself a moment of relief. The Exterminatus, the weapon that had haunted his every waking moment, was no longer a threat. But even as he celebrated this victory, he knew that the war was far from over. The Enclave was still out there, and they would not rest until humanity was once again under their control, or destroyed. With the Exterminatus dismantled, Ross returned to Avalon, where the Alliance continued to strengthen. The Council of Avalon became a beacon of hope for countless species, a symbol of what could be achieved when different peoples worked together for a common goal. The galaxy, once ruled by fear and oppression, was beginning to heal. Trade routes were reopened, cultural exchanges flourished, and new technologies were developed that benefited all. Yet Ross remained vigilant. He knew that peace was fragile and that the Enclave would not easily give up their quest for dominance. He continued to lead the Alliance, forging new alliances, building up defenses, and preparing for the day when the Enclave would strike again. He also knew that the Enclave was not the only threat. The galaxy was full of dangers, both known and unknown, and the work of securing a future for humanity and its allies would never truly be finished. As the years passed, the Alliance grew stronger, its influence spreading across the galaxy. Ross, though aging slowly thanks to the advanced medical technologies of Avalon, began to consider his legacy. He knew that he could not lead forever, and he began to mentor a new generation of leaders, ensuring that the ideals of the Alliance would endure long after he was gone. The final test of the Alliance came when the Enclave, after years of silence, launched a surprise attack on Avalon itself. The battle was fierce, with the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance. But the Alliance, now a formidable force in its own right, fought back with everything they had. The battle raged for days, with both sides suffering heavy losses. In the end, it was Ross who led the final charge, rallying the Alliance forces and pushing the Enclave back. The victory was hard-won, but it marked the end of the Enclave's power. Their forces, shattered and demoralized, retreated into the far reaches of space, where they would never again pose a threat to the galaxy. The Alliance, though scarred by the conflict, emerged stronger and more united than ever. In the aftermath of the final battle,